What is Wicked really about? Should you watch the 1939 Wizard of Oz first? And how did this classic children's tale become one of Broadway's greatest hits? Why is Ariana Grande such a perfect fit for Wicked? Who was the man behind all this legacy? And why is the 1939 recording of The Wizard of Oz one of the most terrifying in history? For those who belt out Defying Gravity like it's an anthem, or have already picked a side, Elphaba's green or Glinda's pink, this one's for you. Wicked, one of the most celebrated musicals of our time, debuted in San Francisco in 2003. Inspired by Gregory Maguire's novel, Wicked, The Life and Times of the Wicked Witch of the West. This musical gives us the untold story of Oz's witches, and now director John M. Chu, In the Heights, Crazy Rich Asians, Now You See Me Too, is bringing it to the big screen on November 22nd. One of the great reasons for its success is its great music, and we must name Stephen Schwartz, responsible for adding the magical soundtrack to other works such as The Hunchback of Notre Dame or Enchanted. With Ariana Grande as Glinda and Cynthia Erivo as Elphaba, Wicked is told in 2 acts. The first act is a backstory set before Dorothy's arrival, while the second overlaps with Dorothy's adventure down the yellow brick road. Here's something to keep in mind. The Wicked film adaptation is being released in 2 parts. The first this month, and the second on December 25th, 2025. While the musical is generally family-friendly, Maguire's 1995 novel explores much darker themes. He's known for his unique retellings, like Confessions of an Ugly Stepsister, which reimagines Cinderella from the stepsister's perspective, or Mirror Mirror, a twist on Snow White.
Whistle while you work.
Wicked is actually the first book in a series of 4, so if this film is a hit, there's plenty of material for potential sequels. Wicked, The Life and Times of the Wicked Witch of the West, is the first book in a saga of 4 novels that Maguire has titled The Wicked Years. The second part is called Son of a Witch, the third volume A Lion Among Men, and the fourth and final book is Out of Oz. It remains to be seen to what extent John M. Chu has decided to faithfully portray the 3 hours of the musical, or perhaps include some more passages from the work, by deciding to separate his interpretation of the story into 2 films. So, do you need to see The Wizard of Oz before Wicked? The short answer, no, but watching it could enhance your experience. Not only is the 1939 film an iconic piece of American cinema, but the second part of Wicked, arriving in 2025, will tie in directly with the events in The Wizard of Oz. Think of this first part as a prequel or spin-off. A quick look at Oz adaptations. Now let's rewind a bit. The Wizard of Oz has been adapted several times. Early versions came out when film was still silent, with a 1910 version and a 1925 take. But both had little success and strayed from the source material due to technological limitations. It wasn't until MGM acquired the rights that we got the 1939 version, the one we all know today. How a failure became a success, the shocking behind the scenes of The Wizard of Oz. Few movies have sparked as many wild stories and controversies as The Wizard of Oz. From accidents on set to allegations of mistreatment, this children's classic had a darker side that often went unseen. Historians and collectors Jay Scarfone and William Stillman, who have written extensively on The Wizard of Oz, explored many of these jaw-dropping stories in their 2018 book, The Road to Oz, drawing from personal interviews and rare archives of those involved in the 1939 production. Here's a look at some of the most surprising facts about this American classic that continues to unite generations. Technicolor film technique. First up, the budget. The Wizard of Oz had a $3 million budget, massive for the time, but it initially failed to make back its costs. To put that in perspective, Gone with the Wind, the biggest commercial hit of the year, cost around $4 million, but brought in over $400 million. One of the biggest expenses? The cutting-edge Technicolor process, a color technique developed in 1916 that used filters and light beams to capture vivid color. Thanks to this, we can still watch The Wizard of Oz in stunning quality almost 90 years later. Shirley Temple versus Judy Garland. While Judy Garland ultimately became iconic as Dorothy, Shirley Temple was the fan favorite for the role. At 15, Garland was considered a bit too old and vivacious for Dorothy, who, in the original books, had a gentler personality. Historians claim that Judy did not win the popular vote among fans of the book, as Shirley Temple was the one most fans of the original book wanted to see in the role. But in the end, Garland brought the energy and depth that made Dorothy unforgettable. Multiple directors for one vision. Few people realize that The Wizard of Oz actually had multiple directors. Originally, Victor Fleming was at the helm, but he left midway to direct Gone with the Wind. After that, Richard Thorpe, George Cukor, and King Vidor all took turns directing different parts of the movie. MGM's strain on Judy Garland. Judy Garland was only 15, yet the studio put her on a strict diet and assigned her a personal trainer. Allegedly, MGM even went as far as sending a chaperone to monitor her behavior off-set. Barbara Bobby Cochet. She was her double on stage and the person who also acted as a spy after hours. MGM was known for hiring people to follow their top stars who had a behavior clause in their contracts. Rumors suggest the studio gave Garland stimulants to help her keep up with the exhausting filming schedule, eventually leading to lifelong struggles with addiction. MGM also had makeup and hair teams meet her at home, maximizing every minute of her limited, legally allowed 4-hour workdays. It is said that she was specifically prescribed dextroamphetamine, a drug with little information at the time that was given for weight loss. Over the years, she would become addicted to psychotropic drugs, and it would be the cause of her death in 1969. Dangers during filming. The set of The Wizard of Oz was full of hazards. Actor Buddy Ebsen, originally cast as the Tin Man, was hospitalized after inhaling toxic aluminum powder in his makeup, causing lung failure. Margaret Hamilton, who played the Wicked Witch, suffered severe burns when her green makeup, made with toxic copper, ignited during a stunt. Even the snow used in the poppy field scene was actually asbestos flakes, which we now know is highly carcinogenic. And while it sounds odd, the Emerald City's red horses were dyed with edible gelatin to get that distinctive look. Munchkinland Controversies. A promoter signed 200 dwarves to portray the Munchkins, each paid less than Dorothy's dog, Toto, who earned $125 a week. Though they added charm to the film, off-set they were reportedly unruly. Garland's husband, Sidney Luft, claimed that many Munchkin actors harassed Garland, even making inappropriate advances. She chose not to press charges, but these stories only added to the film's controversial legacy. The Hanging Munchkin legend. Perhaps the most infamous legend surrounding the movie involves a shadowy figure, supposedly a Munchkin who had taken his life on set, seen hanging from a tree along the yellow brick road. Though this claim has been debunked, Scarphone and Stillman explain that what people saw was likely a large crane used as a prop. The box office bomb that became a classic. Released in August 1939, The Wizard of Oz initially flopped at the box office, with only 35,000 tickets sold nationwide on its opening day. Coming just after Disney's success with Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs of 1937, MGM had hoped for a family hit. But with World War II looming, fairy tales weren't a top escape for audiences. A decade later, however, in 1949, a re-release helped boost its popularity, and its 1956 TV premiere on CBS turned it into a holiday tradition. From there, The Wizard of Oz became the timeless classic we know today. Oscar wins and legacy. Despite its rocky start, The Wizard of Oz won 3 Oscars.
Miss Judy Garland.
Including Best Original Score, Best Original Song for Over the Rainbow, and a Special Academy Juvenile Award for Judy Garland. Today, the film rights belong to Warner Brothers, but MGM's initial gamble has since paid off, with The Wizard of Oz remaining one of the best-known and most cherished films in American cinema history. Other adaptations of The Wizard of Oz. In 1974, the animated film Journey Back to Oz was released, in which Liza Minnelli voices Dorothy. Liza Minnelli is the daughter of Judy Garland. In 1975, the musical The Wiz was presented on Broadway. Later, Motown acquired the rights to the work to bring it to the big screen in an urban setting, and with only African-American actors such as Diana Ross, who played the role of Dorothy, and shared the scene with Michael Jackson. Titled The Wizard, it was released in October 1978.
And you can win, child.
In 1982, an anime film about The Wizard of Oz was made in Japan, directed by Fumihiko Takayama. This version is considered to be the closest to the book, since it covers several editions of the saga. In 1985, Disney released a sequel that should never have happened, Return to Oz. A film where the first 15 minutes seem like a horror movie. In the middle, a conflict develops with attractive characters based on the book, and in the end, it becomes too boring. Many pointed to the lack of charisma of the protagonist and her lack of experience, a failure both in critics and at the box office. In 1992, another anime series was made. In this case, a futuristic adaptation known as The Wonderful Galaxy of Oz, which consists of 26 episodes, and in which we are shown a science fiction plot with large doses of cyberpunk. It is an adaptation aimed at a more adult audience, therefore belonging to the shonen genre. In 2007, the Sci-Fi Channel made a 6-episode miniseries titled Tin Man, a reimagining of the OZ universe, called The Outer Zone. Oz the Great and Powerful is a prequel directed by Sam Raimi that takes place about 20 years before the events of The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, and, indirectly, before the 1939 film The Wizard of Oz. It stars James Franco as the Wizard of Oz, Mila Kunis as Theodora, and Michelle Williams as Glinda. While this film received a lot of criticism at the time, it is a very good adaptation that tried to connect as best as possible with the original film. The characters included are charismatic, and there are many parallels or references that show us that they did a good job of research. Unfortunately, the announced sequel was canceled due to disputes between Disney and Warner.
Let's go kill ourselves a witch!
The book The Wonderful Wizard of Oz is referenced in the Once Upon a Time series, 2011 to 2018, in which one of the main characters is Zelena, the Wicked Witch of the West, played by Rebecca Mader, sister of Regina, the Evil Queen. There are so many adaptations that even Spawn's creator, Todd McFarlane, an artist, writer, and toy designer, created a series of dolls based on a sinister version of The Wizard of Oz. The Man Behind the Land of Oz. The story of Wicked has deep roots in The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, the 1900 classic by L. Frank Baum. But Oz is much more than just that first book. Baum actually created a whole series, with 13 more books set in the same magical world. It was practically an annual tradition, especially later in his life when he decided he had no time to waste. So, who was the man behind it all? Let's dive into the world of Lyman Frank Baum. Baum was born in a small town in Madison and had a passion for writing from a young age. Coming from a wealthy family, his father, a successful businessman in oil, gave him his first printing press, which he used to start a local newspaper. His interest soon shifted to theater, and with his father's support, he even had a small theater stage built to perform his own plays. Baum wasn't just writing scripts, he was also composing music and acting in his own productions. At 40, Baum published his first book, Mother Goose in Prose, and followed it 2 years later with Father Goose, his book, a collection of whimsical poetry. It became the best-selling children's book of that year. Illustrated by W. Denslow, the two made quite a team, though they would later face creative differences. Then came 1900 and their big hit, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, about Dorothy Gale, the girl swept away by a tornado to the magical land of Oz. It quickly became a commercial success and held its spot as a top-selling children's book for 2 years. Their success carried over to the stage, with an adaptation of Oz debuting in Chicago and later on Broadway. Baum wasn't thrilled, however, with the adult twist that the show took, largely under Denslow's influence. The story strayed from its original plot, even cutting out the Wicked Witch of the West, and added political jokes from the time that didn't sit well with Baum. The strain from this, along with royalty disputes, cooled their partnership, and, after an unsuccessful book titled Dot and Tot of Maryland, the two parted ways. Denslow was later accused of embedding political commentary in his illustrations, with some historians suggesting that The Wizard of Oz itself might have been a subtle take on the economic issues of the late 19th century. The yellow brick road, they argue, represented the deceptive promise of gold, while Dorothy's silver shoes, Ruby in the movie, symbolized the Silverite movement, a group pushing for silver-gold currency standards. Despite their split, the success of Oz allowed Denslow to live comfortably in his later years, even buying an island where he spent his final days. Although he attempted to branch out with new worlds and stories, it was clear that the Land of Oz was what readers wanted. So he doubled down, publishing more Oz books each year until his passing in 1919. But Oz didn't end with him. His universe was revived by Ruth Plumly Thompson, a writer and fan of Baum's work, who published 20 additional books in the series. Even now, over 100 years later, the Oz legacy continues to thrive, with new adaptations like Wicked bringing us back to that fantastical world in 2024. Why is She Called ELPHABA? Wicked is set in the land of Oz, before Dorothy's whirlwind arrival, and centers on ELPHABA, the name given by Gregory Maguire as a tribute to Oz's original creator, L. Frank Baum. By using the initials L, F, and B, Maguire crafted the name of the green-skinned girl who eventually becomes the Wicked Witch of the West. The story begins in her childhood, follows her journey through adolescence at Shiz University, and leads into adulthood, right around the time Dorothy shows up in Oz. Oz mirrors our world. In Wicked, ELPHABA opposes the Wizard of Oz, who, portrayed by Jeff Goldblum in John M. Chu's adaptation, rules as a tyrant, enacting oppressive laws against talking animals. ELPHABA's journey to becoming the Wicked Witch is one of resistance and self-discovery, standing against a leader who abuses his power. Maguire uses Oz as a mirror to our own world, where those who differ from the norm often face discrimination. Oz, too, is rife with prejudice, whether by wealth, nationality, or species. As ELPHABA navigates Oz, she befriends characters like Bach, played by Ethan Slater in the film, and Fiyero, Jonathan Bailey, a prince of Vinkus. She also encounters Glinda, her opposite, who ultimately becomes the Good Witch of the North. Together, they navigate themes like political corruption, racism, discrimination, and female empowerment, subjects that have helped Wicked resonate deeply and touch generations. After a trial run in San Francisco, Wicked premiered on Broadway at the Gershwin Theater in 2003, led by Idina Menzel, known as Elsa from Frozen, and Kristin Chenoweth, who played Maleficent in Disney's Descendants. This is a similar approach to Wicked, where we explore a familiar character's past. The show received 10 Tony Award nominations, winning 3 in 2004.
For Best Leading Actress in a Musical goes to
Idina Menzel, Wicked!
Today, it's the second longest running Broadway show with over $1.6 billion in revenue, second only to The Lion King. Globally, Wicked is 5th in revenue, topping $3.5 billion. With its wild success, a film adaptation was inevitable, following in the footsteps of musicals like Chicago, 2002, and Mamma Mia, 2008. Leading stars Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande are likely Oscar contenders, as we wait to see if Wicked can overcome modern box office challenges and end the year on a high note for Hollywood. Ariana Grande, the perfect Glinda. Though Ariana Grande is widely known for her music, she's been connected to acting from a young age. Her talents in music, theater, dance, and acting make her an ideal fit for Glinda. By age 10, she had already performed in musicals like Annie, Beauty and the Beast, and The Wizard of Oz. Later, she starred as Cat Valentine on Victorious, a sitcom set in a performing arts school called Hollywood Arts. Her YouTube cover videos caught the attention of a record label, launching her music career.
And I'm sure that you have dreamed of playing one of the two roles. Would you be Elphaba or Glinda? You'd be Glinda.
For sure.
With Wicked, Ariana Grande could redefine her acting career.
My pulse is rushing.
My head is reeling.
Potentially in the way A Star Is Born transformed Lady Gaga's. If you liked the content, you can support it with a thumbs up and a subscription. See you in the next video.